We live in an age that promises everything. Faster answers, bigger choices, endless distractions at the tap of a screen. And yet, beneath all the noise and convenience, something feels painfully missing. We are more connected than ever, but loneliness grows like a shadow in the background. We work harder and harder, chasing money, chasing recognition, chasing security, but stress and exhaustion keep us awake at night. We long for love and harmony in our families, in our friendships, in our communities. But arguments and disappointment often cut us more deeply than we admit. Anxiety has become the quiet background music of our days, so constant that we almost forget what silence feels like. Maybe you feel it too. That dull weight in your chest when the bills stack up. That restless tension when relationships falter. That quiet panic when the future looks uncertain. It is not weakness. It is the reality of the human condition in the modern world. We are carrying burdens heavier than we were ever designed to hold. But here is the truth. There is a way out. Not through another app. Not through another race toward wealth or status. Not even through running away from the life you have. The way out has been here for thousands of years, waiting quietly for those who dare to stop, breathe, and listen. The teachings of the Buddha are not abstract philosophy locked in dusty books. They are living tools, practical medicine for the exact wounds we suffer today: stress, money struggles, broken relationships, anxiety, endless dissatisfaction. Imagine for a moment that your suffering is not a personal failure. Imagine it is simply a signal, like a warning light on the dashboard, telling you there is another way to drive your life. Buddhism calls it mindfulness, compassion, impermanence, karma, patience. But these are not strange foreign words. They are doors. And each door opens into a room filled with light, where the chains of fear and frustration begin to loosen. This journey we are about to take together is not about becoming someone else. It is not about renouncing your life or escaping to a mountain cave. It is about turning gently toward your own suffering, seeing it clearly, and realizing that it does not have to define you. With every teaching, with every story, you will discover that the prison walls around you were never as solid as they seemed. They crumble the moment you stop clinging, stop fighting, and start breathing with awareness. Over the next hours, we will walk through 10 great doors. Each one begins with a pain you already know, the pressure of uncertainty, the trap of expectations, the ache of broken trust, the fear of change, the whisper of mortality. And through each door, the Buddha offers a medicine simple, clear, timeless. These teachings will not demand blind belief. They will invite you to test them in your own heart, in your own life, in the quiet moments when no one else is watching. So I ask you, not as a teacher, but as a companion, to stay with me. Listen not just with your mind, but with your whole being. Because this is not a lecture. This is a mirror. And when you are ready to look into it, you will see not only your struggles, but also your strength. The world outside will not change overnight. Your responsibilities, your bills, your relationships, they will still be there. But you will not face them the same way. You will face them lighter, calmer, freer. This is the promise of the path we begin now. A path that does not erase suffering, but transforms it into wisdom. A path that does not end in despair, but blossoms into peace. And so, with one breath, we begin. We are told from a young age that life is secure if we plan enough, if we control enough, if we guard against every surprise. In school, we are praised for knowing the answers. In work, we are rewarded for predicting the market, for preparing for every possible outcome. In relationships, we are urged to keep things stable, to hold on tightly so nothing ever changes. Yet despite all this effort to lock life into a neat box, the anxiety does not disappear. It sits quietly inside us, waiting for the moment when the unknown arrives, when the plan falls apart, when the certainty slips away. then the truth becomes undeniable. We are terrified of not knowing what will come next. Think about how much of your energy each day is spent trying to control the uncontrollable. The endless checking of emails, the careful scanning of social media, the forecasting of problems that have not even appeared. You rehearse conversations in your head before they ever happen. You imagine failures that may never arrive. You lie awake at night trying to solve problems that belong to tomorrow. And while your body stays in bed, your mind races through every possible storm. This is the invisible prison of modern anxiety, the belief that safety comes from certainty. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, has certainty ever truly existed? Did you know the day you would meet the person you love? Did you predict the exact moment your career shifted direction? Could you foresee the illness, the accident, the opportunity that changed everything? Life has never once promised you certainty. It has only ever given you this breath, this moment, this single chance to be alive right now. Yet we spend most of our time rejecting this reality, grasping for a future we cannot control, fearing a past we cannot rewrite. This is why the Buddhist teaching begins not with complicated philosophy, but with a very human truth. Suffering comes from clinging. When we cling to certainty, we suffer. When we cling to control, we suffer. When we cling to the fantasy of stability, we suffer. It is not life itself that punishes us, but the way we hold on to life with clenched fists. Imagine standing on the edge of the ocean, waves rolling in and out. If you try to stop the tide, if you demand that the water hold still, you will exhaust yourself. But if you step into the rhythm, letting the waves rise and fall, suddenly the ocean becomes a place of wonder instead of war. This is the difference between living in fear of uncertainty and living in harmony with it. The waves do not change, but you do. The pain is real. Anxiety is not a small matter. It shortens our breath, tightens our chest, clouds our mind. It can make the simplest tasks feel unbearable. It can convince us that something terrible is always about to happen. Modern culture feeds this pain with its constant demand for more information, more prediction, more control. We are told that the next app, the next financial plan, the next life hack will finally give us peace. Yet peace never arrives. Instead, the hunger grows stronger, the fear sharper, the exhaustion deeper. Now consider a different possibility. What if peace is not found in adding more layers of protection, but in letting go of the need to know? What if the unknown is not a threat, but a doorway? This is the quiet revolution the Buddha whispers into our restless hearts. He does not ask us to defeat uncertainty. He invites us to sit with it, breathe with it, and discover that it cannot destroy us. In fact, it is the space where freedom begins. Picture this. A man carries a heavy backpack filled with stones. He believes each stone is necessary to survive. One stone for money worries, one stone for relationship fears, one stone for health anxieties, one stone for the unknown future. His back aches, his steps slow, yet he keeps walking, believing that if he drops the stones, something terrible will happen. Then one day, exhausted, he sets the bag down. To his surprise, the world does not collapse. The sun still rises. The air still fills his lungs. And for the first time, he feels light, free, alive. This is what happens when we loosen our grip on certainty. The Buddha often used the image of the open hand. When your hand is closed, when it clings tightly, nothing new can enter. You only exhaust yourself holding what you already have. But when the hand is open, when it releases the need to grasp, life flows in freely. Opportunities, love, wisdom, peace, they arrive naturally. Not because you forced them, but because you made space for them. This teaching is not an invitation to recklessness. It is not about throwing away responsibility or ignoring the future. It is about shifting the way we meet uncertainty. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, we begin to see it as the natural rhythm of life. When the job changes, when the relationship ends, when the health scare arrives, we do not collapse under fear. We breathe, we feel, and we discover that even in the unknown, we are still alive, still capable, still whole. Think about a time in your life when something unexpected happened. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you met someone who changed your life. Maybe an accident forced you to slow down. At first, the unknown felt terrifying. But later, looking back, you realized it shaped you, grew you, even saved you. This is the gift hidden inside uncertainty. It holds possibilities we cannot yet see, but we only discover them when we stop fighting and start trusting. The practice of mindfulness is the bridge. When the mind runs into the future, mindfulness brings it back to now. When the heart trembles with fear, mindfulness grounds it in the breath. It is not magic. It is simply remembering to come home to this moment, over and over, again and again, until the grip of anxiety slowly loosens. Imagine sitting quietly with your breath. Inhale, exhale. For a moment, nothing is missing. The future is not here. The past is not here. Only this breath, this body, this life. In that pause, anxiety cannot survive. It feeds on what might happen. It starves in what is. This is why the Buddha called mindfulness a refuge. It does not erase uncertainty. It teaches us to live peacefully within it. You may think, but my problems are too big. My bills, my relationships, my health, they cannot be solved by breathing. And you are right. Breathing does not erase problems, but it changes the way you face them. A mind tangled in anxiety cannot see clearly. It reacts, panics, makes mistakes. A mind rooted in mindfulness sees options, responds wisely, discovers strength. This is how peace grows, not by erasing problems, but by transforming the way we hold them. The story of anxiety is the story of clinging to what cannot be controlled. The story of freedom is the story of letting go. And letting go is not weakness. It is the deepest strength you can know. Because when you let go of the need to predict, you begin to trust. When you let go of the need to control, you begin to flow. When you let go of the fear of the unknown, you begin to truly live. So the first step on this journey is simple, though not always easy. The next time you feel anxiety rising, pause. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your breath. Whisper to yourself, I do not need to know everything. I only need to be here now. Then watch as the storm slowly softens, as the prison door quietly opens. And as we continue together, remember, this is just the beginning. The unknown will still come. The waves will still rise. But you will meet them differently. Not as a victim, not as a soldier, but as a human being awake to the truth that life was never meant to be controlled, only lived. And that simple shift changes everything. Anxiety does not only live in the mind, it seeps into the body, shaping the way we breathe, the way we sleep, the way we speak. Our shoulders curl inward, our chest tightens, our heartbeat quickens. We may not always recognize it, but our bodies carry the story of our fear. The Buddha taught that the mind and body are not separate. When the mind trembles, the body echoes. When the body relaxes, the mind can soften too. This is why mindfulness practice always begins with the body. Close your eyes and bring attention to your breath. Notice the air filling your lungs. Notice the way your stomach rises and falls. No need to force it. No need to judge. Just watch. The simple act of noticing begins to interrupt the cycle of fear. Suddenly, instead of being lost in the storm of thought, you are anchored in the reality of this moment. The present becomes a safe harbor, but the modern world rarely encourages such pauses. Our culture praises constant productivity, constant progress, constant doing. To sit quietly, to breathe deeply, to simply be, feels almost rebellious. Yet this rebellion is the beginning of healing. Because only when we step off the treadmill of endless control can we rediscover the stillness we have been craving all along. Think of a snow globe. When it is shaken, the snow swirls wildly, blurring everything inside. This is the anxious mind. Thoughts scatter, emotions swirl, vision becomes unclear. But if the globe is set down, if it is left undisturbed, slowly the snow settles. The scene becomes clear again. Mindfulness is that setting down. It is not about forcing the snow to fall. It is about creating the space for clarity to return naturally. There is a story of a farmer who worried constantly about the weather. If the rains came, he feared his crops would rot. If the sun blazed, he feared they would dry. Every day he carried the weight of imagined disasters, never resting, never trusting. One day, an old monk passed by and asked why he looked so burdened. The farmer poured out his fears. The monk listened, then said gently, "The weather will do as it does. Your peace does not depend on the sky. It depends on your heart." The farmer did not understand immediately, but in time, he realized the truth. His suffering was not caused by the weather, but by his refusal to accept it. This is the essence of our own anxiety. It is not always the situation itself that breaks us. It is the story we tell about it, the resistance we build against it, the desperate wish that life should be other than it is. When we learn to release this resistance, the situation may remain the same, but our suffering begins to dissolve. Of course, letting go is easier said than done. The mind will protest. It will demand answers, demand certainty, demand guarantees. But notice how even when you get the answers, the anxiety rarely disappears. You find yourself worrying again, chasing more certainty, hungry for reassurance. This endless hunger is proof that the solution does not lie in more control. It lies in a different relationship with control itself. The Buddha often compared the mind to a monkey, always jumping, always restless, never content. The anxious mind is like a monkey in a cage, rattling the bars, desperate to escape. But the door has been open all along. We simply forgot to notice. Mindfulness shows us the open door. It reminds us that freedom is not out there, in the future, after everything is resolved. Freedom is here, in the breath, in the choice to release, in the willingness to step outside the cage. Now, let us imagine how this practice can look in daily life. You wake in the morning, and immediately your mind begins listing tasks, worries, deadlines. Instead of rushing forward, pause. Place your feet on the ground. Feel the earth supporting you. Take 3 slow breaths. Whisper silently, "I am here." That small act of presence changes the entire tone of your day. The problems remain, but you are no longer drowning. You are floating, steady, calm. Later, perhaps you sit in traffic, frustration rising. Instead of fighting, notice the grip of your hands on the wheel. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Let your shoulders soften. In that moment, traffic transforms from an enemy into a teacher. It invites you to practice patience, to return to presence, to remember that peace does not depend on moving faster, but on being here fully. At night, when sleep feels impossible and thoughts run wild, place one hand on your chest and one on your stomach. Feel the warmth of your own touch. Breathe slowly. Say to yourself, "I am safe in this moment." The mind may still chatter, but the body begins to soften. The cycle of fear is interrupted. Rest can enter. Through these small, simple practices, the great weight of anxiety begins to shift. Not overnight, not perfectly, but steadily, like ice melting in the sun. The change is subtle, but profound. You no longer live as a victim of uncertainty. You begin to live as a participant in the unfolding mystery of life. And this is where the true beauty of Buddhist wisdom shines. It does not deny the storms of life. It does not promise that pain will vanish or that the future will always be kind. It tells us the storms will come, but you can learn to dance in the rain. It tells us pain will visit, but you can meet it with compassion instead of resistance. It tells us the future is unknown, but that is not a curse. It is the very space where hope, growth, and transformation are born. Imagine life without uncertainty. Imagine knowing every outcome, every twist, every ending before it arrived. Would you truly be at peace? Or would life feel flat, predictable, drained of wonder? The unknown, though frightening, is also the source of joy, of discovery, of love itself. Every beautiful moment in your life once lived in the unknown. Every blessing you now cherish was once hidden in uncertainty. To reject the unknown is to reject the very possibility of happiness. So let us see anxiety not as a permanent enemy, but as a messenger. It tells us we are clinging too tightly, grasping too hard. It reminds us that we have forgotten the truth. Control is an illusion, and peace is found only in letting go. Each time anxiety rises, treat it as a bell of mindfulness. Instead of panicking, pause and ask, what am I clinging to? Then breathe, release, and return to now. As you walk this path, you may notice something extraordinary. The more you practice letting go, the lighter life feels. The problems may still appear, but they no longer crush you. The future may still be uncertain, but it no longer terrifies you. Anxiety becomes less of a chain and more of a guide, pointing you back to presence again and again. And so the first great teaching is clear. Peace is not in certainty. Peace is in presence. Peace is not in controlling life. Peace is in flowing with life. This is the quiet revolution the Buddha invites us into. A revolution not of force, but of surrender. Not of domination, but of release. Not of fear, but of trust. As we close this first doorway, carry with you the image of the open hand. Carry with you the memory of the snow settling in the globe. Carry with you the breath that anchors you in this moment. These are not just ideas. They are practices. They are tools. They are lifelines in the storm. And as we step forward into the next doorway, remember, the mind must also be emptied to receive wisdom. Just as an overflowing teacup cannot hold new tea, a mind overflowing with assumptions and judgments cannot receive peace. So let us continue and discover what it means to meet life with a mind wide open. There is a story often told of a monk and a visitor who came to learn from him. The visitor was a man of great knowledge, proud of his learning and eager to debate. He spoke at length about philosophy, about scriptures, about all the wisdom he thought he already possessed. The monk listened patiently, then began to pour tea into the visitor's cup. He poured until the cup was full, but he did not stop. The tea overflowed, spilling onto the table, dripping to the floor. The visitor cried out, "Stop! Can't you see the cup is full?" The monk looked into his eyes and said softly, "Exactly. How can I show you anything new when your cup is already full?" This story has survived across centuries because it speaks to a truth we often forget. We approach life with cups overflowing with assumptions, with judgments, with the weight of past experiences. We believe we already know how things should be. We believe we already know who people are, how events will unfold, how life is supposed to work. And because of this, we leave no space for true wisdom to enter. Think about the last conversation you had where you stopped listening halfway through, certain you already knew what the other person would say. Or the last time you faced a challenge and immediately judged it as impossible before even trying. Or the last time you dismissed someone's perspective because it didn't fit your expectations. These moments are not small. They are proof of how easily we live with minds closed, cups overflowing. But the Buddha taught a different way. He spoke of what is called beginner's mind, not a mind that is empty of knowledge, but a mind empty of arrogance. A mind that sees each moment as fresh, new, unburdened by comparison. Imagine seeing rain as though it were the first time you had ever seen water fall from the sky. Imagine hearing music as though you had never heard sound before. Imagine meeting someone as though you had never carried assumptions about who they should be. This is beginner's mind-to-mind, wide-open dot. The pain of our modern lives is that we rarely live this way. We live through filters, layers of memory, habits, and judgments. We walk through the world not as it is, but as we assume it to be. And so much suffering arises here. Relationships become strained because we stop seeing each other clearly. Work becomes suffocating because we label every challenge as impossible. Life becomes dull because we believe we already know what each day will bring. Consider how often you say to yourself, "I've seen this before. I know how this will end. I already understand." These words may seem harmless, but they close doors. They trap us inside the cage of our own opinions. And what is opinion but the past carried into the present? It is the ghost of yesterday, dictating the possibilities of today. Now, imagine instead walking through life with a spirit of wonder. A child does not grow bored of the world because everything is new. A butterfly, a puddle, a cloud each is a miracle. The child does not demand that the butterfly should be bigger or that the cloud should look different. The child simply sees, and in seeing, experiences joy. This is the essence of beginner's mind. It is not ignorance. It is innocence returned. It is wisdom stripped of arrogance. You may think, but isn't experience valuable? Doesn't knowledge protect us? Of course, experience matters. But the Buddha did not ask us to throw away our wisdom. He asked us not to be enslaved by it. To know something and still remain open to surprise, that is true wisdom. To carry experience, but not let it harden into judgment, that is freedom. Think of a marriage where one partner assumes they already know the other completely. They stop asking questions. They stop listening deeply. Slowly, love fades, not because it was weak, but because the cup was too full to receive anything new. Now think of a marriage where curiosity remains alive, where each partner greets the other with openness, always willing to be surprised. Love in that space does not fade. It deepens. It grows. This is the difference between a full cup and an open cup. The same is true in our work. When we approach tasks convinced we already know how they must be done, we miss creative solutions. When we meet colleagues assuming we already understand them, we miss true connection. When we enter challenges certain they will defeat us, we blind ourselves to the strength we might discover. Beginner's mind transforms all of this. It allows us to meet the ordinary as extraordinary, to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. But why do we cling so tightly to our overflowing cups? Why do we resist emptiness? Because emptiness feels frightening. To let go of assumptions feels like losing control. To admit we do not know feels like weakness. Yet in truth, it is the greatest strength. A mind that admits it does not know is a mind that can learn. A heart that admits it does not understand is a heart that can grow. A life that admits it cannot predict is a life open to wonder. The Buddha described this openness as freedom from the burden of self. When we cling to our opinions, our identities, our judgments, we create a heavy self-image that must always be defended. I am this kind of person. I know this much. I cannot be wrong. This self-image becomes a prison. But when we release it, when we allow ourselves to say, "I don't know," the walls fall away. The air rushes in. The world becomes vast again. Let us pause here and imagine a practice. Tomorrow, when you wake, Whisper to yourself, "Today I know nothing." As you step into your day, carry this spirit of openness. When you eat breakfast, taste it as though for the first time. When you speak with someone, listen as though you have never met them before. When you walk outside, look as though you have never seen the sky. This simple experiment shifts the entire texture of your day. The world becomes brighter, richer, more alive. The modern mind is starved for this openness. We live in a culture that rewards being right, being certain, being confident. Doubt is seen as weakness, humility as failure. But the Buddha teaches that humility is the beginning of wisdom. Only when you release your grip on what you think you know, can you touch the truth of what is dot, so the next time you feel frustrated, ask yourself, am I suffering because of what is happening, or because of what I think should be happening? Am I angry because the person is truly wrong, or because I assumed they would act differently? Am I stuck because the situation is impossible, or because my mind has already decided it is? These questions open the door to beginner's mind. There is no shame in not knowing. There is great shame in pretending to know when we do not. A closed cup cannot receive tea. A closed mind cannot receive truth. The courage lies not in defending your knowledge, but in emptying your cup. That is the moment life begins to pour its wisdom into you. When the monk poured tea until the cup overflowed, he was not humiliating the visitor. He was offering a mirror that revealed the truth of how most of us live, always pouring more, always adding more, always clinging to what we already believe. And in this restless state of fullness, there is no space for transformation. The lesson is not only for seekers of wisdom, but for every human heart. Think of the workplace. A team gathers to solve a problem. One member insists they already know the answer. They speak over others, dismiss new ideas, protect their position. Perhaps they are intelligent, perhaps even experienced. Yet the team feels suffocated. The problem remains unsolved. Why? Because the cup was too full. Now imagine the same team, but this time each member sets aside certainty. They listen with curiosity, ask questions, remain open. Suddenly, creativity blossoms. Solutions emerge that no one could have seen alone. The difference lies not in intelligence, but in openness. Now think of a friendship. A friend shares their pain, but instead of listening, you rush to advise. You assume you already know what they need. You fill the space with your words, your judgments, your experiences. But the friend leaves feeling unseen. Your overflowing cup prevented true connection. What if instead you emptied your cup? What if you listened not to respond, but to understand? In that emptiness, your presence itself becomes healing. The danger of an overflowing cup is subtle but destructive. It breeds arrogance. It blinds us to reality. It convinces us that we are right even when we are lost. And perhaps worst of all, it closes our hearts to the miracle of the present. Because every moment is new, yet we cover it with the dust of the past. Beginner's mind asks us to wipe away that dust, to meet life with fresh eyes, even when it feels familiar. This does not mean abandoning wisdom. It means holding wisdom lightly, with humility. It means recognizing that no matter how much we know, there is always more to see. The Buddha once compared the mind to a field. If the soil is hard and unbroken, seeds cannot enter. But if the soil is soft and open, seeds take root and grow. Our judgments, our assumptions, our fixed ideas, they harden the soil of the mind. Nothing new can grow there. Beginner's mind is the act of softening. It is the willingness to be plowed open, to make space for the seeds of wisdom to take root. But how do we practice this in the chaos of modern life? We begin with awareness. Notice when your mind says, "I already know." Notice when you dismiss someone before hearing them. Notice when you rush to judgment. These are the signs of a full cup. When you catch them, pause, breathe, whisper to yourself, Empty the cup. This simple reminder creates space. Another practice is curiosity. Instead of assuming, ask. Ask questions not to prove a point, but to truly understand. Ask life itself. What is this moment teaching me? What am I not seeing? How can I be surprised? Curiosity is the natural companion of beginner's mind. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. Children remind us of this daily. Watch a child explore the world. Every rock is a treasure, every insect a marvel, every moment alive with discovery. They do not filter life through heavy judgments. They simply see. The Buddha invites us to recover this way of seeing, not childishness, but childlike wonder. This is why he often said, "Be a beginner." Yet many resist this teaching. They fear emptiness. They confuse beginner's mind with ignorance. But ignorance is blindness. Beginner's mind is clarity. Ignorance refuses to look. Beginner's mind looks deeply, without pretense. Ignorance closes doors. Beginner's mind opens them wide. Ignorance says, "I already know." Beginner's mind says, "Show me." In relationships, this openness can heal wounds. Instead of labeling your partner, "They are always this way," you look again with fresh eyes. You listen as though for the first time. In doing so, you may discover something new, something tender, something beautiful you had overlooked. Love deepens not through certainty, but through curiosity. In work, beginner's mind can spark innovation. Instead of repeating the same solutions, you step back and ask, what if we knew nothing about this? What if we started fresh? Entire industries have been transformed by those willing to see with new eyes. Creativity thrives where the cup is empty. In your personal journey, beginner's mind can dissolve despair. When life feels stuck, when you believe you already know how it will end, ask yourself, what if I don't? That single question can open a crack where light enters. Perhaps the story is not finished. Perhaps the ending you fear is not inevitable. Perhaps something you cannot yet imagine is waiting. The practice of emptiness does not deny pain. It allows us to meet pain without the heavy overlay of assumptions. Instead of saying, "This suffering will never end," beginner's mind asks, "What is happening right now?" Instead of drowning in the belief that we know the future, it brings us back to the only place life is ever real, the present. And here lies the profound freedom. When the cup is empty, life itself becomes the teacher. Every conversation, every challenge, every breath carries wisdom. We no longer need to chase answers frantically. We only need to remain open enough to receive them. Imagine walking through a forest. If you rush with your head full of thoughts, you may see only trees. But if you walk with beginner's mind, you see the play of light on leaves, the song of birds, the miracle of life unfolding. The forest becomes alive in ways you had forgotten. Life is no different. Most of us see only the surface. Beginner's mind reveals the wonder beneath. And so, the invitation is clear. Empty your cup. Let go of the need to be right. Let go of the burden of already knowing. Let go of the fear of not knowing. In the emptiness, wisdom will pour. In the openness, peace will bloom. As we close this doorway, remember the monk and the teacup. Remember the visitor, so eager to learn yet unable to receive. Remember that you too carry a cup. Each day you must decide, will you carry it full, heavy with assumptions, or will you empty it, ready for the freshness of life? The path of Buddhism is not about adding more beliefs. It is about clearing space for truth to reveal itself. And when truth is revealed, it always arrives simple, clear, liberating. And now, as we step forward, let us look deeper into another truth, that every thought, every action, every word is not isolated. They ripple outward, shaping the world around us. Just as a pebble dropped in a pond creates waves that reach far beyond its point of entry. So too our choices shape our lives and the lives of others. This is the wisdom of karma, not as punishment, but as a gentle mirror. Drop a pebble into a still pond and watch the ripples spread. They move outward in circles, touching the edges, returning again to the center. The water does not punish the pebble. The ripples are not revenge. They are simply the natural response to an action. This is the simplest image of karma. Not a cosmic scoreboard, not a mysterious fate chasing us, but the basic truth that every thought, every word, every deed sends ripples through our lives and the lives of others. Yet many misunderstand this teaching. Some fear karma as if it were punishment, believing that every mistake dooms them to some unseen retribution. Others dismiss it as superstition, something too mystical for modern life. But karma is not punishment, and it is not superstition. Karma is cause and effect, as natural as planting seeds and watching them grow. If you plant apple seeds, you will not harvest oranges. If you plant bitterness, you will not reap peace. If you plant kindness, compassion will eventually bloom. You may not control the timing of the harvest. You may not know how the rain will fall or the sun will shine, but the seed you plant is your choice. This is the empowering truth of karma. You are always planting. You cannot control everything, but you can choose your seeds. Think of how a single harsh word spoken in anger can echo for years. A child who hears constant criticism may grow into an adult filled with doubt. A friend betrayed may carry wounds long after the moment has passed. The word itself lasted only a second, but the ripple traveled far. Now think of a single act of kindness. A smile given to a stranger who feels invisible. A hand extended to someone in despair. These two ripple outward, touching lives in ways you may never see. Karma is not distant. It is immediate. It lives in every choice right now. The pain of modern life often blinds us to this truth. We rush through days filled with stress, acting on impulse, speaking without thought, reacting without awareness. Then we wonder why our lives feel heavy, why relationships break, why peace slips away. But karma is not mysterious. It is simply the mirror of our actions. When we sow anger, we live surrounded by anger. When we sow fear, we live surrounded by fear. When we sow compassion, we live surrounded by compassion. Life reflects back what we give. This does not mean that every hardship is punishment. The Buddha never taught that suffering is always the result of past mistakes. The world is complex, woven from countless causes and conditions. Illness, disaster, loss, these may come without warning, not because we deserve them, but because life is fragile. Yet even in these moments, karma offers freedom. Because though you may not choose what happens to you, you can choose how you respond. And that response plants new seeds, shaping the future. Imagine two people losing their jobs. One reacts with anger, blaming everyone, sinking into bitterness. The other breathes, accepts the pain, and chooses to see the loss as an opening to new possibilities. The same event, but two different karmic paths. The seeds they plant will bear different fruit. This is the true meaning of karma, not destiny, written in stone, but the unfolding of choices moment by moment. Consider your own life. How many of your current struggles can be traced to past seeds? Perhaps the loneliness you feel comes from years of pushing people away. Perhaps the financial stress comes from patterns of fear and avoidance. Perhaps the peace you sometimes feel comes from moments when you chose patience over anger. Karma is not far away. It is here, shaping your present with the seeds of your past. But just as importantly, your present choices are already shaping your future. The Buddha compared life to a garden. Each thought, each word, each deed is a seed planted in the soil of your heart. Some seeds grow quickly, others take years, even lifetimes. But nothing planted is lost. The question is not whether seeds will grow, but which ones. And this question is answered by your daily actions, your daily words, your daily thoughts. You may not control the entire garden of life, but you are the gardener of your own heart. This teaching is not meant to make you afraid of mistakes. It is meant to make you aware of possibilities. Every moment is a chance to plant wisely. Even when you have planted anger, you can choose compassion now. Even when you have planted fear, you can choose courage now. The past does not chain you. Each breath is an opening, a chance to begin again. But notice how easily we forget this. In stress, we lash out. In fear, we close down. In loneliness, we withdraw. Each reaction plants new seeds of suffering. Then we blame life, thinking it unfair. But life is not unfair. Life is honest. It reflects what we give. The invitation of karma is to pause, to notice, to choose differently. Imagine the power of this in relationships. A partner snaps at you. Instinct urges you to snap back. That choice plants the seed of more conflict. But if instead you pause, breathe, and respond with calm, you plant peace. Over time, the garden of your relationship shifts. Not overnight, not perfectly, but slowly, steadily, like a tree growing toward the light. Imagine the power of this in your own mind. A fearful thought arises. You could feed it with more fear, watering the seed until it becomes overwhelming. Or you could notice it, breathe, and let it pass without clinging. That choice plants clarity. Over time, the mind itself changes, becoming less stormy, more open. This is the miracle of mindfulness applied to karma. It transforms your inner garden dot, so the question is not, what will happen to me? The question is, what seeds am I planting right now? This question shifts everything. It takes you from victim to participant, from helplessness to responsibility, from fear to freedom. Asterisk, the Buddha never promised a life free of difficulty, but he offered a path where difficulty becomes teacher. Every challenge, every joy, every sorrow is an opportunity to plant seeds of wisdom. The ripples you create shape not only your life, but the world around you. This is the interconnected beauty of karma. And as you walk this path, remember, you are never powerless. The smallest act of kindness plants seeds stronger than the largest storm. The gentlest words spoken with compassion can ripple farther than you will ever know. The most ordinary choice made with awareness can transform the course of your life. So let us pause here. Feel the breath in your body. Ask yourself, what seed am I planting in this moment? Is it anger or patience? Is it fear or trust? Is it selfishness or compassion? The garden of your life will answer these questions in time. The ripples will reveal the truth. And as we move forward together, we will look deeper into another truth that flows naturally from karma, the impermanence of all things. For if karma is the dance of cause and effect, then impermanence is the rhythm to which the dance unfolds. Nothing stays. Everything changes. And it is in embracing this change, rather than resisting it, that we find the freedom to live fully. Karma is often misunderstood as something distant, something waiting for us in the next life, some unseen balance sheet being written in the sky. But the Buddha never intended it to feel far away. Karma is immediate. It is in the tone of your voice when you speak. It is in the intention behind your actions. It is in the thoughts you feed, the habits you nurture, the way you move through each day. The future is being shaped in the present moment. Think of the last time you lost your temper. Perhaps it was in traffic, or during an argument, or at work when stress was high. In the moment, anger felt powerful, almost righteous. But what followed? A lingering heaviness in the chest. Regret for words spoken too sharply. Tension that lasted long after the event. This is karma. not punishment, but natural consequence. The seed of anger planted its fruit. Now think of the last time you responded with patience, when you chose kindness instead of reacting. The peace that followed was also karma. The seed of compassion planted its fruit. Karma is not hidden. It is lived. And because it is lived, karma is not meant to frighten us, but to empower us. We cannot control what happens around us. We cannot stop the storms of life, but we can choose how we respond. That choice is the essence of freedom. In each response lies the power to change the future. Consider the story of Angulimala, a man feared for his violence. His life had been shaped by anger and cruelty, and the karma of his actions was heavy. But when he encountered the Buddha, something shifted. Instead of meeting him with fear or hatred, the Buddha met him with compassion. That single act planted a seed that transformed Angulimala's entire life. He laid down his weapons. He chose a new path. His past could not be erased, but his future was no longer bound by it. This story reminds us that karma is not fixed. The garden can always be replanted. How often do we chain ourselves to the past, believing our mistakes define us? We say, "I have always been this way. I cannot change. My anger, my fear, my failures, they are who I am." But karma says otherwise. It says that who you are is not fixed. Who you are is the gardener of this moment. The seeds you plant now matter more than the weeds behind you. You are not condemned by the past. You are invited to create the future, but let us not romanticize the process. Planting new seeds requires courage. The old weeds resist. Habits of anger, fear, greed, and selfishness do not vanish overnight. They return again and again, demanding to be fed. The practice of karma is not perfection. It is persistence. Each time anger arises, you have the chance to choose patience. Each time fear whispers, you have the chance to choose trust. Each time selfishness tempts, you have the chance to choose compassion. Each choice, though small, reshapes the soil of your heart. This is where mindfulness and karma join hands. Mindfulness shows us the seeds we are planting. Karma shows us the fruits that will grow. Together, they remind us that we are never powerless. Even in the darkest moment, even in the deepest habit, one mindful breath can plant a seed of change. Think of a man who has spent years in bitterness. He blames others for his suffering. He repeats the same harsh words to those around him. His garden is filled with thorns. Yet one day he pauses. He notices his anger. He breathes. He chooses not to speak the cruel word rising to his lips. In that moment, a new seed is planted. A seed of restraint, of compassion. It is small, almost invisible. But over time, watered with awareness, it grows. Slowly the thorns give way to flowers. This is the miracle of karma in daily life. The Buddha compared karma to a shadow that follows you wherever you go. But unlike a shadow, karma is not passive. It is creative. It is the thread weaving your future. When you realize this, life no longer feels random. It begins to make sense. You see the patterns. You understand why certain storms return again and again. You see how the seeds you planted years ago still bear fruit today. And more importantly, you see how the seeds you plant today will shape tomorrow. But karma is not only individual, it is collective. The ripples of our actions touch others, and their ripples touch us. A culture of fear is built from countless seeds of fear planted by individuals. A culture of compassion is built from countless acts of kindness. The world we live in is not separate from the seeds we plant together. When you choose compassion, you not only free yourself, you contribute to the healing of the whole. This is why the Buddha emphasized intention. Two people may perform the same action, but the intention behind it shapes the karma. A gift given out of pride plants different seeds than a gift given out of love. A word spoken to wound plants different seeds than a word spoken to heal. Karma is not just about what you do, but why you do it. So the question becomes, how do we live with this awareness without becoming paralyzed? How do we plant wisely without falling into fear of making mistakes? The answer lies in compassion, for yourself as much as for others. You will plant weeds. You will make mistakes. You will speak in anger, act in fear, fall short of your intentions. This too is karma. But if you meet these moments with gentleness, if you forgive yourself and choose again, then even the mistake becomes a seed of wisdom. Think of a cracked pot carrying water. Along the path, water spills from the crack. At first, it seems wasteful. But in time, flowers begin to bloom where the water falls. What seemed like a flaw becomes a gift. In the same way, our mistakes, when met with awareness and compassion, can become the very ground where beauty grows. And so the teaching of karma is not heavy law, but gentle guidance. It is not meant to frighten, but to awaken. It reminds us that life is interconnected, that nothing we do is isolated, that every choice matters. It invites us to live with care, not out of fear, but out of love. Pause again. Feel your breath. Ask yourself, what seeds am I planting right now, in my thoughts, in my words, in my actions? Do they lead to peace or to suffering? Do they open hearts or close them? This awareness is the beginning of freedom. As we step from this doorway into the next, the lesson becomes even clearer. If karma is the ripple of our choices, then impermanence is the ever-changing water through which those ripples flow. Nothing stays the same. Every ripple eventually fades. Every wave eventually dissolves. And it is in accepting this dance of change, instead of resisting it, that we find the courage to live without fear. There is a truth we spend much of our lives trying to deny. Everything changes. Nothing we love, nothing we fear, nothing we cling to will stay as it is. Our bodies change, our relationships change, our fortunes rise and fall. Our world shifts in ways we never expect. Yet despite knowing this in our minds, we resist it in our hearts. We grip what we want to last. We push away what we do not want. And in that constant battle against the flow of life, suffering is born. Imagine trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes between your fingers. This is the nature of impermanence. The more we try to control, the more we try to lock life into a shape that cannot last, the more pain we create. Yet when we learn to cup the water gently, to hold it without clinging, we find a peace we never knew was possible. Our culture teaches us to fear change. Advertisements promise products that will make beauty last forever, that will freeze time, that will lock love in place. We measure success by how stable our careers appear, how permanent our possessions seem, how fixed our status feels. But beneath this desperate chase lies the quiet reality. Nothing in this world stands still. And the more we resist this, the more fragile our happiness becomes. Think of the heartbreak that comes when a relationship ends. The pain is real, the grief undeniable. Yet often, what deepens the suffering is not the ending itself, but our resistance to it. We say, this should not have ended. This should have lasted forever. But love itself is not gone. What is gone is our image of permanence, our illusion of control. When we can release that illusion, grief becomes sacred. The ending becomes part of the beauty. For without endings, beginnings could not exist. The Buddha described impermanence not as a curse, but as a doorway to freedom. He saw that suffering comes not from change itself, but from our refusal to accept it. Life is not cruel for changing. Life is life always moving, always unfolding. When we stop fighting this truth, we discover a deeper peace, think of the seasons. Autumn leaves fall, winter snow arise, spring blossoms bloom, summer warmth returns. We do not rage against the seasons. We accept their flow, even celebrate it. We know the snow cannot last forever, but we do not despair. We know the flowers will wither, but we do not mourn. Why then do we not meet our own lives the same way? Why do we treat every change as a tragedy instead of part of life's rhythm? The pain of impermanence is also its gift. Because nothing lasts, every moment is precious. The laughter of a child, the warmth of the sun, the embrace of a loved one, all are fleeting, and precisely because they are fleeting, they are sacred. If life were permanent, if nothing ever changed, joy would become dull. It is the fleeting nature of life that makes it shine. But let us be honest. Accepting impermanence is not easy. When illness strikes, when loss arrives, when age touches our bodies, the instinct is to cling, to resist, to deny. Yet denial only deepens the wound. The Buddha invites us to turn toward impermanence, to see it not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Each wrinkle on the face teaches the beauty of time. Each farewell teaches the value of presence. Each change teaches the art of letting go. There is a story of a woman named Kissa Gotami, whose child died suddenly. In her grief, she carried the body of her child to the Buddha, begging for medicine to bring him back. The Buddha told her to bring a mustard seed from a home that had never known death. She searched every house, but in each home, she found grief. Each family had lost someone. When she returned, empty-handed, she understood. Her pain was not unique. Death is part of life. This realization did not erase her grief, but it transformed it. She saw that clinging to permanence was the source of her deepest suffering. From then on, she walked the path with compassion and wisdom. This story is not about despair. It is about awakening. It reminds us that loss is not punishment. It is part of the great turning of life. When we see this, our hearts open. We discover compassion for others, knowing they too face change. We discover gratitude for the moments we have, knowing they will not last. We discover peace, not because life is unchanging, but because we stop demanding that it be so. Impermanence also teaches humility. The highs of life, the success, the praise, the wealth do not last. The lows of life, the failures, the shame, the poverty do not last either. Nothing defines us forever. No situation is fixed. This is hope. The storms will pass. The sun will return. Change is not only loss, it is also renewal. Think of a forest after a fire. At first, it seems only destruction. The trees are gone. The ground is blackened. The silence heavy. But slowly, life returns. Seeds hidden in the soil sprout. Flowers bloom. New growth rises stronger than before. This is impermanence in action. Destruction becomes the ground for creation. Loss becomes the ground for renewal. The Buddha called this truth Kanika, the impermanent nature of all things. He did not teach it to frighten us, but to free us. When we see that nothing lasts, we stop clinging so tightly. We begin to live fully, love deeply, and let go gracefully. Impermanence teaches us to embrace each moment without trying to trap it. Pause here and reflect on your own life. What changes are you resisting? What endings are you refusing to accept? What beginnings are you afraid to welcome? Notice how resistance feels in the body: tightness, heaviness, pain. Then imagine softening. Imagine opening to the flow. Imagine saying, "This too is part of life." Feel how the body releases, how the heart softens, how peace begins to grow. This practice is not about indifference. It is not about pretending we do not care. It is about caring so deeply that we are willing to let life move as it must. To love someone is to know they will change. To love life is to know it will end. And still we love. That is the courage impermanence asks of us. So the invitation is this: live as if everything is precious, because it is. Do not wait to appreciate someone until they are gone. Do not wait to savor beauty until it fades. Do not wait to live fully until tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised. Only this breath, only this moment is yours. And in this truth, there is no despair. There is only freedom. For if nothing lasts, then every pain will pass. If nothing lasts, then every joy must be cherished. If nothing lasts, then life is not a prison, but a dance of change, a dance of letting go, a dance of endless new beginnings. We often believe that impermanence steals our happiness. We think, if only things would stay the same, I could finally be at peace. But if we look more closely, we see the opposite is true. It is the very fact that life changes that makes peace possible. Imagine if pain lasted forever, if sorrow could never fade, if mistakes were carved in stone. What kind of life would that be? It is impermanence that rescues us. It is impermanence that guarantees that storms pass, that wounds heal, that hearts can open again. Think of a night sky filled with clouds. For hours, perhaps even days, the stars are hidden. But the clouds do not last. Eventually they drift, and the sky clears, and the stars shine again. The stars were always there, but it was change that revealed them. In the same way, your peace is always there, hidden sometimes by sorrow, fear, or loss. Impermanence clears the sky of your heart, making space for peace to shine once more. Yet impermanence does not only comfort us in pain, it awakens us to the beauty of joy. When you realize that laughter will not last forever, you laugh more deeply. When you realize that love will one day change form, you love more fiercely. When you realize that this breath is fleeting, you breathe it with gratitude. Impermanence turns ordinary moments into sacred gifts. The Buddha taught that clinging to permanence is like holding on to a rope that is burning. The tighter we grip, the more we suffer. But when we release, the pain eases. To let go is not to give up. To let go is to set down what was never truly ours to keep. Everything we hold, our possessions, our relationships, even our bodies, was always borrowed. Impermanence is not theft. It is the natural return of what was never fully ours. This teaching invites us to shift our relationship with change. Instead of resisting, we learn to flow. Instead of fearing, we learn to trust. Imagine standing in a river. If you fight the current, you exhaust yourself. If you let the current carry you, you move with grace. Life is that river. Impermanence is its flow. We can exhaust ourselves resisting, or we can discover peace by learning to move with it. There is a story of a king who sought a message that would always be true, no matter what. He wanted wisdom that could comfort him in sorrow and humble him in joy. After many searches, the message was finally brought to him, engraved on a simple ring. "This too shall pass." These 4 words became his guide. When sorrow overwhelmed him, he looked at the ring and remembered, "This too shall pass." When pride swelled in him, he looked at the ring and remembered, "This too shall pass." Impermanence became his teacher, shaping his reign with humility and peace. We can carry this same wisdom in our own lives. When fear rises, whisper to yourself, "This too shall pass." When joy fills your heart, whisper the same words, "This too shall pass." Not as a warning, but as a reminder to cherish. Every moment, whether heavy or light, carries the same truth. None of it lasts. All of it matters. Modern life makes this practice even more vital. We live in a world of constant change, technology advancing, economy shifting, cultures evolving. At times it feels overwhelming, as though we are being swept away. But the Buddha's teaching of impermanence steadies us. It tells us, Yes, everything changes. Yes, nothing stays. But peace is not found in stopping the change. Peace is found in opening your heart to it. Look at nature. A flower blooms, then wilts. A tree grows, then falls. A river carves new paths. The earth itself shifts and evolves. Change is not an enemy. It is the heartbeat of existence. We are not separate from this rhythm. We too are born, grow, change, and pass away. To resist is to fight life itself. To accept is to join the dance. Of course, acceptance does not mean passivity. It does not mean we stop caring or stop acting. When a loved one suffers, we do not shrug and say, impermanence. We act with compassion. We do what we can, but we act without the illusion that we can control everything, without the demand that life obey our desires. Acceptance empowers us to help with clear minds and open hearts. This wisdom also brings healing to grief. When someone we love dies, the pain can feel unbearable. We want them back. We want the love to last forever. And yet, their impermanence does not erase the love. The love remains, living in memory, shaping our hearts, flowing into the compassion we show others. Impermanence does not destroy love. It transforms it. Think of a candle lighting another candle. The first flame may go out, but the light continues in the second, and the third, and the 100th. In the same way, the love of those who pass does not vanish. It continues in us, in the kindness we carry forward, in the compassion we share. Impermanence does not end love. It expands it beyond the boundaries of a single life dot. So how do we practice with impermanence each day? Begin small. Notice the rise and fall of your breath. Each inhale ends. Each exhale passes. Yet life continues. Notice the shift of emotions. Anger flares, then softens. Joy rises, then fades. Notice the passing of time. Morning becomes night. Seasons turn. Impermanence is everywhere, teaching us if we are willing to see ** each time you notice. Whisper gently to yourself, this too is changing. These words are not meant to sadden you. They are meant to wake you up. They remind you to cherish what is here and to release what must go. And slowly, the fear of change begins to dissolve. You realize that impermanence does not threaten you. It frees you. It frees you from clinging to what cannot last. It frees you from despair when life feels heavy. It frees you to live fully, love deeply, and let go gracefully. So as we close this doorway, carry the truth with you. Everything changes. Let this truth soften your grief, deepen your gratitude, and awaken your courage. Do not fear impermanence. Walk with it. Dance with it. Let it teach you the beauty of each fleeting moment. And as we step forward, we will see another source of suffering, the weight of our expectations. Not only do we cling to permanence, but we also cling to the way we think life should be. We write invisible scripts, demanding that reality obey them. And when it does not, we suffer. But just as impermanence invites us to release control, the wisdom of emptiness invites us to release expectation. We carry invisible scripts in our minds, stories of how life should unfold, how people should behave, how the world should treat us. These scripts are rarely written on paper, but they are written deeply in our hearts. A partner should always understand us. A friend should never betray us. A career should progress smoothly. Our health should remain strong. And when reality does not follow the script, disappointment strikes like a hammer. The truth is simple yet hard to accept. Life does not obey our expectations. The child does not always grow into the person we imagined. The job does not always match the dream we built. The relationship does not always last as long as we hoped. Yet instead of adjusting to reality, we cling to the script. We say, this is not how it should be. And in that gap between what is and what we think should be, suffering takes root. This is what the Buddha called emptiness. Not emptiness as in meaninglessness, but emptiness as in the absence of fixed nature. Life does not exist according to our rigid scripts. People are not frozen in the roles we assign them. Situations are not locked into the shapes we demand. Everything is fluid, without a fixed should. When we understand this, we begin to see the world not through the lens of our expectations, but through the clarity of what is. Think of a painter facing a blank canvas. If the painter insists the canvas should already contain a masterpiece, frustration grows. But if the painter accepts the emptiness, the openness, possibilities unfold. Life is that canvas. When we drop the demand that it should already look a certain way, we discover the freedom to create, to see, to live. Consider how often suffering comes not from reality itself, but from the story we tell about it. A rainy day arrives. We say, it should be sunny. Disappointment arises. But the rain itself is not suffering. It is water nourishing the earth. A friend forgets to call. We say, they should have remembered. Anger arises. But the forgetting itself is not suffering. It is a simple human slip. A career path shifts. We say, it should not be this way. Fear arises. But the change itself is not suffering. It is the mind's clinging to should that makes it heavy. This is why the Buddha taught that the word should can be one of the heaviest chains we carry. When we insist on how things should be, we close ourselves off to how things are. We blind ourselves to reality. We resist the truth of the moment. And in resisting, we suffer. The wisdom of emptiness asks us to release this grip, to see that expectations are like clouds drifting through the sky shapes without solidity, stories without permanence. We can watch them pass without believing they define reality. We can meet each moment fresh without comparing it to the script in our heads, but letting go of should is not easy. We have spent years building our scripts, often without realizing it. Families, cultures, and societies hand us expectations from birth. We are told what success should look like, what love should look like, what happiness should look like. These stories sink deep into us. To release them feels like losing the ground beneath our feet. Yet what we lose is not the ground. What we lose is the cage. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents a should. Life should be easier. People should be kinder. Success should come faster. Love should last forever. With each stone, your steps grow heavier. The journey becomes exhausting. Now imagine setting the backpack down. Suddenly you can breathe. You can move. You can see the path ahead with clarity. Nothing outside has changed, but everything feels lighter. This is the gift of emptiness, the release of should. There is a story of a student who came to a Zen master, complaining about how life was unfair. The student listed all the ways people had disappointed him, all the ways life had failed to meet his expectations. The master listened patiently, then handed the student a glass of water with a pinch of salt in it. "Drink," he said. The student drank and grimaced. "It's bitter," he said. Then the master led him to a lake and poured in a handful of salt. "Drink from here," he said. The student drank again, and this time smiled. "The water is fresh," the master said. "Life is like this water. The salt of suffering is always there. But when your mind is small, it tastes bitter. When your mind is vast, it cannot harm you. Releasing should makes the mind vast. It frees us from bitterness. So how do we practice this release in daily life? We begin with awareness. Each time disappointment arises, ask yourself, is it the event itself that hurts, or the gap between the event and my script? Notice how much pain comes from the story of should. Then gently whisper to yourself, This is how it is. These words are not resignation. They are liberation. They release you from the fight against reality. In relationships, this practice brings deep healing. Instead of demanding that your partner always act according to your script, you begin to see them as they are: complex, changing, human. Instead of clinging to, "they should never hurt me," you learn to meet mistakes with compassion. Instead of demanding, "they should always understand," you open space for patience. Love becomes less about control and more about presence. In work, releasing "should" brings freedom from constant frustration. Projects do not always unfold as expected. Colleagues do not always act as we wish. Success does not always arrive on schedule. When we cling to "should," every setback feels like failure. When we release, setbacks become teachers. We adapt, we grow, we discover new paths. Even in your relationship with yourself, this teaching is profound. How often do you say, "I should be further along by now. I should be stronger. I should be wiser"? These expectations weigh heavily, turning your life into a constant battle against yourself. But when you release them, when you meet yourself as you are, you discover compassion. You discover peace in the present instead of endless war with what you are not. The Buddha described this as seeing the emptiness of all things. Not emptiness as void, but emptiness as freedom from fixed nature. Nothing is locked into "should." People, situations, even you, everything is open, changing, alive with possibility. This realization dissolves disappointment. Because when nothing is fixed, nothing has failed. Life is simply unfolding. Pause here and reflect. Where in your life are you trapped by "should"? Where are you demanding that reality follow your script? Notice the suffering it brings. Now imagine loosening your grip. Imagine whispering, "This is how it is." Feel the release. Feel the space that opens. In that space, peace begins to grow. The practice of emptiness is not about indifference. It does not mean we stop caring or stop striving. It means we strive with openness instead of demand. It means we love without clinging, work without forcing, live without resisting. It means we see the canvas of life not as ruined because it does not match our sketch, but as open to new colors, new shapes, new beauty. So the invitation of this doorway is clear. Set down the burden of "should." Release the invisible scripts. Meet life as it is, not as you demand it to be. In that release, disappointment dissolves, peace arises, and love becomes possible in ways you never imagined. The wisdom of emptiness can feel unsettling at first. If there is no fixed "should," if nothing holds the solidity we imagined, then what can we depend on? Where do we find stability? The answer is both simple and liberating. Stability is not found in clinging to things outside ourselves. Stability is found in the way we meet life itself. It is found in openness, in presence, in compassion. Think of a dancer moving across a stage. The floor shifts, the lights change, the music rises and falls. Yet the dancer does not demand that the stage remain still. Stability comes from her balance, her awareness, her ability to flow with what changes. Life is the same. The world around us moves, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. We cannot demand it stand still, but we can learn to move with it, balanced by mindfulness, guided by compassion. The pain of expectation is that it locks us into rigid patterns. It convinces us that there is only one way to be happy, one path to success, one form that love must take. And when reality does not match that picture, despair arrives. But when we embrace emptiness, we see countless possibilities. Happiness is not confined to a single outcome. Success is not limited to a single story. Love is not trapped in a single shape. The canvas is open, waiting for new colors. There is a parable of two arrows. The Buddha said that when we face pain, it is like being struck by an arrow. The pain is sharp, real, unavoidable. But then, we often strike ourselves with a second arrow, the arrow of resistance. We say, "This should not have happened. This should not be my life. This is unfair." The second arrow doubles the suffering. The wisdom of emptiness is the practice of not firing that second arrow. It is the willingness to feel pain without adding the weight of should. Consider a simple example. You spill coffee on your shirt before an important meeting. The first arrow is the spill itself mild inconvenience, some frustration. But then comes the second arrow. This shouldn't have happened. Why am I so clumsy? Now everything is ruined. The suffering multiplies. Yet if you meet the moment with emptiness, with the awareness that life is not bound by your script, the spill is just a spill. You clean it, you move on. The pain remains small because you do not add to it. This practice, repeated daily, transforms life. Traffic becomes traffic, not catastrophe. Rain becomes rain, not injustice. Aging becomes aging, not failure. By releasing should, we free ourselves from the constant sting of the second arrow. We discover a lighter way of living. But emptiness is not only about reducing suffering, it is also about unlocking compassion. When you release expectations of how people should be, you begin to see them as they are. You no longer demand perfection. You no longer hold them hostage to your script. Instead, you meet them with kindness, with patience, with love. Think of a friend who disappoints you. If you cling to, "They should never let me down," anger grows. But if you release the should, you see their humanity. You see their struggles, their imperfections, their own suffering. Compassion arises naturally. The relationship deepens, not because it met your script, but because you opened your heart. The same is true in parenting. Many parents carry heavy scripts of who their children should become. When the child does not follow, conflict arises. But when parents release the script, they see the child's unique path. They support rather than control. Love becomes freer, more joyful. Even in our relationship with ourselves, this wisdom is powerful. How often do you judge yourself by rigid expectations? I should be stronger. I should be calmer. I should have succeeded by now. These scripts become whips, driving us into shame and exhaustion. But when we see the emptiness of should, we release the whip. We meet ourselves with compassion. We allow growth to unfold naturally. The Buddha described emptiness as the middle way between extremes. On one side is clinging, demanding permanence, demanding certainty, demanding should. On the other side is nihilism, believing nothing matters, nothing has meaning. Emptiness is not despair. It is freedom. It says, nothing is fixed, therefore everything is possible. Life is not bound by rigid form, therefore it is alive with potential. Think of a clay pot. If you focus only on the clay, you see weight, shape, hardness. But the true usefulness of the pot lies in its emptiness, the space it holds. In the same way, the true gift of life lies in its openness, its absence of fixed form. Because life is empty of should, it is full of possibility. So how do we cultivate this openness? Begin by noticing language. Each time you hear yourself say should, pause. Ask, is this reality or is this my script? Then gently replace should with is. Instead of this should not have happened, say this is what happened. Instead of they should be different, say this is who they are right now. Instead of I should be further along, say this is where I am. These small shifts dissolve the grip of expectation and open the door to peace. Another practice is gratitude. When we cling to should, we focus on what is missing. Gratitude shifts our eyes to what is present. It reminds us that even in imperfection, beauty exists. Even in change, blessings remain. Gratitude empties the cup of complaint so it can be filled with joy. Over time, emptiness becomes not frightening, but liberating. You begin to see that life does not need to follow your script to be meaningful. People do not need to meet your expectations to be worthy of love. You do not need to meet your own harsh demands to be enough. Life is not ruined by imperfection. Life is made alive by a dot. Pause for a moment. Breathe. Whisper to yourself, I release the burden of should. Feel the space that opens. Feel the weight lift. Feel how peace begins to rise from within, not because life is perfect, but because you stopped demanding that it be. This is the gift of emptiness, the freedom to live without clinging, to love without controlling, to grow without shame. It does not erase pain, but it dissolves the extra suffering we create through our expectations. It does not promise certainty, but it reveals the vastness of possibility. It does not give us a fixed ground, but it gives us wings. So as we close this doorway, remember, the world will never obey your scripts. People will disappoint. Plans will change. Life will move in unexpected directions. But this is not a curse. It is a blessing. It is the openness that makes life alive. When you release the weight of should, you do not fall into emptiness. You rise into freedom. And as we step forward, we will see how this freedom connects directly to another truth, the practice of compassion. Because once you release the burden of how people should be, you can meet them as they are with gentleness, with kindness, with love. This is the heart of the next teaching. Compassion as the medicine that heals both ourselves and the world. When the Buddha was once asked which teaching was most essential, he did not point to complicated philosophy or abstract concepts. He said simply, compassion. Compassion is the heart of the path, the medicine that soothes the wounds of suffering, the bridge that connects us to others and to ourselves. Without compassion, wisdom becomes cold. Without compassion, mindfulness becomes self-centered. Without compassion, the path loses its soul. But what is compassion? It is often confused with pity or sentimentality. True compassion is neither. Compassion is the clear, steady recognition of suffering, paired with a sincere wish to alleviate it. It is the courage to open your heart to pain, your own and others, without turning away, without denying, without hardening. Compassion does not mean you must fix everything. It means you choose to care, even when fixing is impossible. In modern life, compassion is often seen as weakness. We are taught to toughen up, to compete, to protect ourselves first. But this hardness does not bring peace. It isolates us. It builds walls between people. It leaves us lonely, even when surrounded by others. Compassion, on the other hand, dissolves walls. It reminds us that we are not alone, that suffering is shared, that kindness is strength. Think of the last time someone truly listened to you. Not with judgment, not with solutions, but with presence. They may not have solved your problem, but their compassion made the burden lighter. Now think of the last time you offered that gift to someone else. You may not have had the answers, but your kindness gave them breath, gave them space, gave them hope. This is compassion, not fixing, but being present with love. The Buddha compared compassion to a mother's love for her child. A mother does not protect her child because she expects reward. She does not love only when it is easy. She loves because the child's joy and suffering are inseparable from her own. True compassion sees the whole world as that child. It sees the suffering of others as inseparable from your own. But here lies the challenge. How do we practice compassion in a world that feels so harsh? We turn on the news and see endless conflict, division, cruelty. We walk through our daily lives and encounter anger, indifference, selfishness. At times, the suffering feels overwhelming. Compassion seems impossible. Yet this is exactly when compassion is most needed. Not grand gestures, not saving the whole world at once, but small acts of kindness that ripple outward. Imagine you are walking down a busy street. A stranger meets your eyes and smiles. For a moment, the weight on your shoulders lightens. Imagine you are at work, drowning in stress, and a colleague takes a moment to ask sincerely how you are. For a moment, you feel seen. These are not small things. They are sparks of compassion, and each spark matters. The Buddha taught that compassion is not just for others. It must begin with yourself. This is where many struggle. We speak kindly to friends, but harshly to ourselves. We forgive others, but punish ourselves endlessly. Yet self-compassion is not selfishness. It is the foundation. If you cannot care for your own suffering, your compassion for others will burn out. You will give from emptiness instead of fullness. Consider how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake. Do you scold, condemn, attack? Or do you speak as you would to a dear friend, with gentleness, with patience, with understanding? The way you treat yourself is the soil from which all other compassion grows. When you meet your own suffering with kindness, you create the strength to meet others. Suffering to dot, there is a story of a monk who carried water each day from the river to the temple. He used 2 pots, one perfect and one cracked. Each day the cracked pot leaked, arriving half empty. The pot was ashamed, believing itself worthless. But one day the monk said, "Do you not see? Flowers bloom along your side of the path, nourished by the water you give. You thought your flaw made you weak. In truth, it made the world more beautiful." This story reminds us, compassion includes even our flaws. It sees beauty where the harsh mind sees failure. Modern stress often convinces us we do not have time for compassion. We rush from task to task, consumed by deadlines, blinded by our own struggles. But compassion is not another task to add to the list. It is the way we move through tasks. It is the tone of our voice, the gentleness of our presence, the patience of our breath. Compassion is not separate from daily life. It is the spirit we bring to it. Think of traffic again. When someone cuts you off, the instinct is anger. But what if you pause and imagine? Maybe they are rushing to the hospital. Maybe they are carrying pain you cannot see. Even if they are simply careless, meeting them with compassion softens your heart. You suffer less, not more. Compassion does not excuse harmful actions, but it frees you from being consumed by hatred. In relationships, compassion is the glue that heals cracks. Arguments will happen. Disappointments will arise. Without compassion, wounds deepen. With compassion, wounds become bridges. To look at someone and say, "I see your pain and I care," even in the midst of conflict, is to transform the energy of the moment. At work, compassion builds trust. Leaders who act with compassion create environments where people feel valued, where creativity grows, where fear dissolves. Colleagues who support each other with compassion create teams that thrive, not only in success, but in struggle. And in your own heart. Compassion transforms the way you carry your burdens. Instead of saying, "I must endure this alone," you say, "I deserve kindness, even from myself." That simple shift changes everything. The Buddha described compassion as the natural fruit of wisdom. When you see clearly that all beings suffer, when you see clearly that all beings are connected, compassion arises as naturally as water flowing downhill. It is not forced. It is not duty. It is the most natural response of an awakened heart. Pause here. Bring to mind someone you care about who is suffering. Imagine them in front of you. Place your hand on your heart. Whisper silently, "May you be free from pain. May you find peace. May you know love." Now bring to mind yourself. Whisper the same words. "May I be free from pain. May I find peace. May I know love. This simple practice plants seeds of compassion. Each repetition strengthens the habit of kindness. Compassion does not erase suffering, but it transforms the way we carry it. It turns loneliness into connection, anger into patience, despair into hope. Compassion is the medicine not only for the world, but for the soul. And as we move forward, we will see that compassion is not only a feeling, it is action. It is lived in the way we treat others, in the way we respond to injustice, in the way we carry ourselves through the world. This is the next step, turning compassion into daily practice, into a way of life that shapes every word and every choice. Compassion begins as a seed in the heart, but it must be watered through practice. Without practice, it remains only a feeling, fragile and fleeting. With practice, it becomes a way of being, strong enough to withstand the storms of life. The Buddha taught that compassion is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the ground on which peace is built. So how do we practice compassion in daily life? We begin with presence. To be present with someone is already an act of compassion. In a world where people feel unseen, ignored, or dismissed, to give your full attention is a gift. When you listen without interrupting, when you sit quietly with someone in their pain, when you allow them to be without rushing to fix them, you are practicing compassion. It does not require grand gestures. It requires presence. We also practice compassion through speech. Words can wound, and words can heal. Each day, we speak countless words. How many are spoken with care? How many are spoken in anger, sarcasm, or indifference? Compassionate speech is gentle, truthful, and mindful of impact. It does not mean we avoid honesty. It means we deliver honesty with kindness, like medicine given with steady hands. Compassion also asks us to act. Not every action must be dramatic. Holding the door open, offering a smile, writing a note of encouragement, giving a moment of patience in a busy day, these are all acts of compassion. Small actions ripple outward. They remind others of their worth. They remind us of our own humanity. But compassion does not mean weakness. It does not mean letting others harm us or excusing injustice. True compassion includes wisdom. It sees when boundaries are needed, when truth must be spoken firmly, when protection is required. To let harm continue unchecked is not compassion. To act with clarity and kindness, even when it is firm, is compassion. Consider a parent guiding a child. If the child runs toward danger, compassion is not standing aside. Compassion is stopping them, even if the child protests. In the same way, compassion in the world may require us to stand against cruelty, to speak against injustice, to act to protect the vulnerable. Compassion is not passive. It is courageous. The Buddha described compassion and wisdom as two wings of a bird. With only one wing, the bird cannot fly. Compassion without wisdom becomes blind sentiment. Wisdom without compassion becomes cold detachment. Together, they lift us. Together, they allow us to soar. In modern life, compassion is often overshadowed by speed and competition. We rush through our days, measuring success in numbers and achievements. But when the day is done, what lingers in the heart? Not the deadlines, not the profits, but the moments of connection, the kindness shared, the compassion given and received. These are the true measures of a life well lived. Think of someone at the end of their life. Rarely do they say, "I wish I had earned more money." More often they say, "I wish I had loved more. I wish I had forgiven more. I wish I had been kinder." Compassion is the legacy we leave, the footprint that remains long after we are gone. There is a story of the Buddha meeting a man consumed by anger. The man hurled insults, trying to provoke him. But the Buddha remained calm, responding with kindness. The man grew frustrated and demanded, "Why do you not respond with anger?" The Buddha said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does it belong?" The man answered, "It remains with the giver." The Buddha said, "So it is with your anger. I do not accept it, and so it remains with you." This is compassion in action, not weakness, not passivity, but strength rooted in wisdom. We too can practice this. When faced with anger, we need not return it. When faced with cruelty, we need not mirror it. We can choose compassion, not because the other deserves it, but because compassion frees us from being chained to hatred. Compassion is not only for others. It is the medicine that heals our own hearts. Pause and reflect. Who in your life is difficult to love? Who stirs anger, resentment, or bitterness in you? Imagine them now, not as an enemy, but as a human being carrying pain you cannot see. Whisper silently, "May you be free from suffering." This does not excuse their actions. It frees your heart from the poison of hatred. Compassion is not approval. It is liberation. But compassion also includes yourself. Many people live as their own harshest critics. They offer kindness to others, but deny it to themselves. They forgive others, but not themselves. The Buddha taught that you can search the entire world and not find a single being more deserving of compassion than yourself. When you learn to meet your own suffering with kindness, you break the cycle of self-punishment. You discover strength, resilience, and peace. So each day, practice small acts of self-compassion. Rest when you are tired. Speak gently to yourself when you stumble. Celebrate progress instead of only criticizing mistakes. Treat yourself as you would treat someone you deeply love. This is not selfishness. It is the foundation of every other act of compassion. Over time, compassion becomes a habit, then a way of life. It shapes your relationships, your work, your choices. It softens your heart without weakening it. It connects you to others without consuming you. It heals your wounds and gives you the courage to face the suffering of the world with open eyes and steady hands. And as we close this doorway, let us carry the truth. Compassion is not an optional virtue. It is the essence of the path. It is the medicine that heals both self and world. It does not require wealth, status, or power. It requires only an open heart. And as we step forward, we will see that even with compassion, suffering still visits. But suffering itself carries within it the seed of transformation. This is the next doorway. Understanding suffering not as enemy, but as teacher, the very ground from which wisdom and peace arise. The Buddha's first teaching after his enlightenment was not about bliss, nor was it about heaven. It was about suffering. He began with the Four Noble Truths, and the very first truth was simple and direct. Life includes suffering. Birth, aging, illness, death, loss, disappointment, loneliness, despair, these are woven into the fabric of existence. He did not hide this truth, because to deny suffering is to deny reality. And to deny reality is to remain trapped. Modern culture, however, runs from suffering. We are taught to hide it, numb it, distract ourselves from it. We cover pain with entertainment, with substances, with endless activity. We scroll through screens, chase new pleasures, surround ourselves with noise, all to avoid looking at what hurts inside. Yet no matter how fast we run, suffering follows. It waits quietly for us, like a shadow. The more we avoid it, the more it shapes our lives in hidden ways. But the Buddha offered a radical shift. Suffering is not the enemy. Suffering is the teacher. It is the doorway to awakening. Without suffering, we would never search for freedom. Without suffering, we would never open our hearts to compassion. Without suffering, we would never grow in wisdom. Suffering, when met with awareness, becomes the soil in which peace blossoms. Think of the lotus flower, a symbol often used in Buddhism. The lotus grows in muddy water. Its roots are buried in darkness. Yet from that mud, a flower of incredible beauty rises and blooms above the surface. Without mud, there is no lotus. Without suffering, there is no awakening dot. Consider your own life. Think of the moments that shaped you most deeply. Were they times of ease, when everything went smoothly? Or were they times of struggle, when pain forced you to look deeper, to change, to grow? For most of us, it is suffering that transforms us. It strips away illusions. It reveals what truly matters. It teaches strength, patience, compassion. The Buddha himself was born into comfort, surrounded by luxury. But it was only when he left the palace and saw sickness, old age, and death that his heart was pierced. That pain awakened his search. That suffering became the catalyst for his journey. Without it, he would never have sought enlightenment, and the world would never have received his teachings. The same is true for us. Suffering is not punishment. It is invitation. It asks us to stop running, to stop distracting, to stop hiding. It asks us to look directly, to see clearly, to open our hearts. It asks us to walk the path, but let us be honest, facing suffering is not easy. When pain arises, the instinct is to push it away. We tense our bodies, harden our hearts, distract our minds. Yet this resistance only adds a second layer of pain. The Buddha compared it to being shot by two arrows. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life. The second arrow is our resistance, our denial, our anger, our clinging. We cannot avoid the first arrow, but we can choose not to fire the second. Think of grief after losing someone you love. The first arrow is the loss itself, sharp and real. The second arrow is the thought, this should not have happened. Life is unfair. I cannot survive this. These thoughts tighten the wound. But when we allow grief simply to be grief, when we feel it fully without resisting, it becomes a teacher. It softens the heart. It deepens compassion. It teaches us the preciousness of love. This is the practice of turning towards suffering instead of away. When anxiety rises, instead of drowning in it, we pause. We breathe. We notice the racing thoughts, the tight chest, the restless energy. We say, this is anxiety. This is what it feels like. By naming it, by allowing it, we loosen its grip. Suffering loses its power when we stop running from it. The Buddha did not promise a life without suffering. He promised a path that transforms suffering into wisdom. This path is not about escaping life, but about seeing life clearly. When you sit with pain, when you listen to it, when you open to it, you discover that suffering is not solid. It is like a storm, fierce, overwhelming, but always moving. No storm lasts forever. Beneath the storm, the sky of your mind remains vast and open dot in modern times. Suffering often comes in the form of stress, anxiety, loneliness. These are the new names of dukkha, the ancient word the Buddha used for suffering. Stress from endless demands, anxiety about the future, loneliness in a world more connected, yet more isolated than ever. These are real pains, but they too can be teachers. Stress can teach us to slow down, to simplify, to return to what matters. Anxiety can teach us to ground ourselves in the present, where peace is possible. Loneliness can teach us the value of connection, the importance of compassion, the truth that we are never truly separate. There is a story of a monk who asked the Buddha, "What is the greatest gift one can give to another?" The Buddha replied, "The gift of fearlessness. To meet someone in their suffering, to sit with them without judgment, to remind them they are not alone, this is to give the gift of fearlessness." But we can only give this gift when we have learned to face our own suffering dot, so the invitation is this. When suffering arises, do not run. Do not numb. Do not deny. Instead, pause, breathe, turn toward it with curiosity. Ask, what are you here to teach me? Listen. In that listening, suffering becomes less of a monster and more of a guide. Pause now and reflect. What suffering in your life do you avoid? What pain do you try to bury beneath distractions? What grief do you refuse to name? Imagine turning toward it. Imagine saying gently, I see you. I will not run from you. Feel how the energy shifts. Feel how fear softens. This is the first step toward freedom. Suffering is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. It is the crack through which light enters. It is the mud from which the lotus blooms. It is the teacher that leads us to the path, and as we continue, we will see how the path unfolds. For the Buddha did not only name suffering, he offered the way through it, a path of mindfulness, of compassion, of wisdom, a path that turns the very thing we fear into the very thing that frees us. To see suffering as teacher requires a shift in vision. Most of us have been conditioned to see suffering only as a problem to be solved or an obstacle to be removed. But the Buddha invites us to look more deeply. Suffering, when faced with awareness, is a mirror. It reflects the truth of impermanence, the truth of clinging, the truth of connection. It reveals where we are trapped and points to where we can be free. Consider the simple pain of waiting. You stand in line, minutes ticking by, frustration rising. The suffering is not the line itself, but the mind's refusal to accept the moment. The mirror shows impatience, restlessness, the endless grasping for things to move faster. If we pause and breathe, we see the truth. Life is always this fragile, this fleeting, this out of our control. The suffering of waiting becomes a teacher of patience. Or consider the ache of rejection, when love is not returned, when efforts are not recognized. The pain is real, sharp, undeniable. But the mirror shows our attachment to approval, our clinging to the image of who we think we must be. Rejection becomes the teacher of self-compassion, the reminder that our worth does not depend on another's validation. The Buddha often said that suffering is the arrow that pierces the heart and opens it. Without that piercing, the heart remains closed, armored by illusion. But when pierced, the heart softens. It begins to feel the suffering of others. It begins to understand that we are all fragile, all human. Suffering breaks the shell of isolation and awakens compassion. This is why the Buddha called suffering the noble truth. Not because it is pleasant, but because it is precious. It carries nobility because it is the path to awakening. To deny suffering is to deny our own humanity. To face it is to step into the truth. Yet many people misunderstand. They believe the Buddha was pessimistic, obsessed with suffering. But his teaching was the opposite of despair. He was not pointing to suffering to trap us in it. He was pointing to suffering so we could be free of it. He said, yes, there is suffering, but there is also a path. There is also release. There is also peace. Think of a doctor who tells you the truth of your illness. At first, the diagnosis is hard to hear, but without it, healing is impossible. In the same way, the Buddha's diagnosis of suffering is the beginning of healing. He shows us what is wrong, not to frighten us, but to guide us toward the cure. The practice, then, is to meet suffering with mindfulness. Instead of reacting blindly, we turn toward it with gentle awareness. We notice where it lives in the body, how it moves in the mind, what stories it tells. We breathe with it. We hold it with compassion. In that holding, it changes. It softens, teaches, transforms. There is a story of a woman who came to a teacher, overwhelmed by grief. She asked, "How can I make this grief go away?" The teacher said, "Grief never goes away. It changes. It becomes part of you, like the scar of a healed wound. But in that scar lies strength, memory, love." The woman learned to stop fighting grief and instead to walk with it. In time, the grief itself became her teacher of compassion. guiding her to help others in sorrow. This is how suffering transforms when met with awareness. It does not vanish, but it becomes wisdom. It does not disappear, but it becomes strength. It does not break us, but it opens us. Modern life gives us countless opportunities to practice. Every stress, every disappointment, every anxiety is an invitation. The traffic jam can teach patience. The broken plan can teach flexibility. The loneliness can teach connection. The illness can teach gratitude for health. The loss can teach love's preciousness. Life itself becomes the classroom, and suffering becomes the teacher. But to learn, we must listen. We must stop running from pain. We must sit quietly and allow it to speak. This requires courage, but it also requires gentleness. We do not force ourselves to endure more than we can. We hold suffering tenderly, like a wounded child. We say, "I see you. I am here." In that tenderness, the lesson begins to emerge. Pause for a moment. Bring to mind a current suffering in your life. It may be stress, loss, fear, loneliness. Instead of pushing it away, imagine sitting beside it. Imagine placing a gentle hand on it. Whisper, "I see you. I will not run from you." Feel how the suffering shifts when it is met with compassion instead of resistance. This is the practice. Suffering is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. From suffering arises the search for meaning. From suffering arises the hunger for peace. From suffering arises the compassion that binds us together. The Buddha did not say, "Avoid suffering." He said, "Understand suffering." In understanding, we find freedom. And so, as we close this doorway, remember, suffering is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It does not come to destroy you. It comes to awaken you. It comes to open your heart, to deepen your compassion, to guide you to the path of peace. And as we step into the next doorway, we will see that this path is not walked alone. Just as suffering connects us, so too does love. For the medicine that balances suffering is not escape, but connection. It is the power of love, not only romantic love, but the vast love of humanity, the love of life itself. If suffering is the teacher, then love is the medicine. Love is what steadies the heart when storms rage. Love is what connects us when loneliness isolates. Love is what softens the hard edges of pain, reminding us that even in the darkest places, light still shines. The Buddha spoke often of love, not the narrow love that clings or demands, but the boundless love that flows without condition, without possession, without end. We often think of love only in romantic terms, as desire or attachment. But the love the Buddha taught, called metta, is something far deeper. It is a love that wishes well-being for all, a love that does not cling, a love that does not divide into us and them. It is the love of a mother for her child, extended to all beings. It is the love that says, "May you be safe. May you be happy. May you live with peace." Imagine a candle lighting another candle. The first flame does not lose its light. It only multiplies. Love is like that. The more it is given, the more it grows. Unlike possessions, love is not depleted by sharing. It expands. It fills. It transforms. But modern life often confuses love with possession. We are taught to say, "You are mine. You complete me. Without you, I am nothing." This is not love. This is attachment. True love does not cling. True love does not demand. True love does not seek to control. It wishes the happiness of the other, even when it means letting go. Think of the sun shining on a garden. It does not choose one flower to warm and withhold its light from the rest. It shines on all, giving life freely. In the same way, the love the Buddha spoke of is not selective. It does not ask, "Do you deserve my care?" It simply says, "You are alive. Therefore, you are worthy of love. This kind of love may feel impossible. How can we love even those who hurt us? How can we love strangers, or those we disagree with, or those who cause harm? The Buddha's answer was clear: because they too suffer, because they too long for peace, because beneath their actions, no matter how misguided, they are human beings caught in the same cycle of fear and desire. To love them does not mean excusing their actions. It means refusing to let hatred poison your own heart. There is a story of a monk who was captured and tortured by enemies. Later, when he was asked how he endured, he said, "Even as they tortured me, I kept compassion for them in my heart. My greatest fear was not pain, but losing my love." This story shows the strength of love. It cannot be broken by cruelty. In fact, it is in cruelty that love becomes most powerful. But we need not face such extremes to practice this love. We practice each day in small ways. When a colleague irritates us, instead of clinging to anger, we breathe and silently wish them peace. When a stranger cuts us off in traffic, instead of cursing, we imagine they may be suffering too, and we send them kindness. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, instead of criticizing, we whisper, "May I be kind to myself today?" These small practices are not small at all. They are the building blocks of a loving heart. God love is also the cure for loneliness. In a world more connected digitally, yet more isolated emotionally, loneliness has become a silent epidemic. People sit surrounded by others and still feel unseen. Love breaks this isolation. It reminds us we are part of something larger. It connects us to humanity, to life, to the great web of being. Consider the practice of metta meditation, where we repeat phrases of loving kindness. We begin with ourselves. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. Then we extend to someone we love. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. Then to a neutral person, a stranger. Then even to someone difficult. Finally, to all beings. This practice reshapes the heart. It dissolves barriers. It expands love beyond its usual limits. Love does not mean we never feel anger. Love does not mean we never set boundaries. Love does not mean we accept harm. Love means we act with the intention of care, even when it is firm. To say no with love is still love. To walk away with love is still love. To protect with love is still love. Pause for a moment. Bring someone you care for to mind. Imagine them smiling. Whisper silently, "May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be peaceful." Notice how your own heart softens. Now bring to mind yourself. Whisper the same words. Notice how the heart expands. This is the practice of love. The Buddha taught that love is limitless. He said, "Just as the mother protects her only child with her life, so should one cultivate boundless love for all beings, not only for those we find easy to love, but for all. Not only for those who agree with us, but for all. Not only for those who bring us joy, but even for those who bring us pain." This is the highest form of love, not sentimental, not fragile, but fierce, expansive, unbreakable dot in this world. Where conflict divides and fear spreads, such love is revolutionary. It dissolves the illusion of separation. It reveals that your suffering is my suffering, your joy is my joy, your life is bound with mine. Love is not just an emotion. It is the recognition of truth. We are not separate. And as we continue, we will see that this truth extends even further. For if love is boundless, then forgiveness is its natural fruit. To love is to forgive, not to excuse, but to free, not to condone, but to release the chains of resentment. Forgiveness is where love becomes liberation. Love, when it matures, blossoms into forgiveness. Without forgiveness, love remains narrow, conditional, and fragile. With forgiveness, love becomes boundless, resilient, unshakable. Forgiveness is not about erasing the past or pretending harm never happened. It is about releasing the grip that resentment holds on the heart. It is about refusing to let anger dictate the shape of your life. We often misunderstand forgiveness. We think it means saying, "What you did was acceptable," but that is not forgiveness. Forgiveness is not approval. Forgiveness is freedom. It frees the one who forgives from the poison of hatred. It frees the heart from chains of bitterness. It allows love to flow again where it was blocked. Think of resentment like carrying hot coals in your hands. You grip them tightly, waiting to throw them at the one who hurt you. But all the while, it is your own hands that burn. Forgiveness is not letting the other go free. It is setting yourself free. It is finally putting down the coals. There is a story of two monks walking together. At one point, they came to a river and found a woman struggling to cross. One monk immediately lifted her onto his back, carried her across, and set her down. Hours later, the other monk said bitterly, "Why did you carry her?" "We are not supposed to touch women." The first monk replied, "I set her down at the river. Why are you still carrying her?" This story shows the heart of forgiveness, letting go of the weight we do not need to carry. In modern life, we carry countless weights. A harsh word spoken years ago, a betrayal that still stings, a mistake we made that we cannot release. These memories cling like heavy stones in the backpack of our hearts. Forgiveness is the practice of setting them down, not to forget, not to excuse, but to walk forward unburdened. But forgiveness does not come quickly. It is not a single decision, but a practice. Each time anger arises, each time resentment stirs, we breathe. We remind ourselves, holding on only deepens the wound. We whisper, "May I find peace. May I let this go." Slowly, the grip loosens. Slowly, love flows again. Forgiveness also includes ourselves. Many people live trapped by shame. They replay mistakes, punish themselves endlessly, deny themselves compassion. Yet the Buddha taught that you can search the whole world and not find anyone more deserving of your love and forgiveness than yourself. Self-forgiveness is not indulgence. It is the soil in which healing grows. Consider your own heart. What mistakes do you carry like stones? What regrets whisper in your mind at night? Pause and imagine placing those stones down. Whisper, "I forgive myself. I was learning. I am human." Feel the release. Feel the space that opens for love. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength. It takes great courage to release resentment. It takes great power to meet harm with love. The Buddha said, "Hatred never ceases by hatred, but only by love." This is the eternal law. Forgiveness is the living of that law. It is the refusal to add more hatred to the world. Asterisk, and when we forgive, we heal not only ourselves, but also others. Forgiveness can restore relationships, rebuild trust, renew communities. It can transform enemies into friends, strangers into companions. Forgiveness is love in action, love that chooses connection over division, love that chooses peace over war. Pause again. Bring to mind someone who has hurt you. Notice the weight of that memory. Notice the tightness in the body, the heaviness in the heart. Now imagine releasing it. Imagine saying, "I will not let this pain define me. I release you. I release myself." Feel the lightness. This is forgiveness. Love without forgiveness cannot last. Forgiveness without love cannot heal. Together, they create the soil in which peace grows. Together, they create the heart that can face the world with openness, even when the world wounds. And so the teaching of love is not sentimental. It is practical. It is necessary. Without love, we are isolated. Without forgiveness, we are chained. With love and forgiveness, we are free. Free to live without hatred. Free to connect without fear. Free to walk the path with joy. As we close this doorway, remember, suffering teaches and love heals. Love is not possession. Love is not demand. Love is the boundless wish for well-being, given freely to all. And when that love deepens into forgiveness, the heart becomes vast as the sky. Nothing can break it. Nothing can poison it. Nothing can close it. And as we step forward, we will turn to another teaching that makes this possible: mindfulness. For without mindfulness, love is scattered, compassion is unfocused, forgiveness is fleeting. Mindfulness gathers the heart and mind into the present, where love can truly live. There is a story of a monk who owned a simple porcelain teacup. One day, while holding it, he said, "To me, this cup is already broken. I enjoy it fully now, but when it falls and shatters, I will not be surprised. I will not suffer." This story is not about the cup. It is about mindfulness. To live with mindfulness is to live with full presence, aware of impermanence, aware of fragility, aware of life as it is right now. Mindfulness is the practice of being here, not in yesterday's regrets, not in tomorrow's fears, but in the present moment where life is happening. The Buddha taught mindfulness as the direct path to peace. He said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." Yet modern life pulls us constantly away from presence. Our minds are scattered by notifications, by tasks, by endless distractions. We rush from one moment to the next without ever touching the moment we are in. We eat without tasting. We walk without noticing. We listen without hearing. We live without living. And in that absence, stress grows, anxiety builds, loneliness deepens. Mindfulness is the antidote. It is the art of returning home to the present. It is the choice to breathe, to see, to feel, to be fully alive right now. When we practice mindfulness, even ordinary moments become sacred. A sip of tea becomes peace. A step on the ground becomes grounding. A breath becomes life itself. But mindfulness is not just relaxation. It is not about escaping. It is about seeing clearly. When you are mindful of your anger, you do not drown in it. You notice the heat, the tension, the racing thoughts. You see it for what it is, a storm that will pass. When you are mindful of your fear, you do not collapse beneath it. You notice the tight chest, the shallow breath, the restless mind. You see it for what it is, a wave that rises and falls. Mindfulness does not erase emotions. It transforms your relationship with them. The Buddha compared mindfulness to a lamp in the dark. Without it, we stumble blindly, hurting ourselves and others. With it, we see clearly, moving with steadiness and care. Mindfulness brings awareness to our thoughts, our words, our actions. It helps us see the seeds we are planting through karma. It helps us release the grip of should by showing us what is. It helps us open to impermanence, to compassion, to love. Think of the last time you were truly present. Perhaps watching a sunset, holding a child, listening to music. In that moment, the mind was not racing to the past or future. It was still aware, alive. That is mindfulness. And the gift is that mindfulness does not require special conditions. It is available in every breath, in every step, in every moment. There is a practice called mindful breathing. It is simple yet powerful. You sit quietly and breathe. As you inhale, you say silently, "Breathing in, I know I am breathing in." As you exhale, you say, "Breathing out, I know I am breathing out." Nothing else. Just this. In this simple act, you return to the present. You anchor yourself in life, Another practice is mindful walking. Each step is taken with awareness. You say silently, I am here. I am alive. The ground beneath your feet becomes sacred. The act of walking becomes meditation. In modern times, mindfulness is often used for stress reduction, and indeed it helps. But its true purpose is deeper. It is to awaken. It is to see clearly the nature of reality, impermanence, suffering, non-self. It is to free the heart from clinging and fear. Imagine eating mindfully. You take a piece of fruit. You notice its color, its texture. You smell its fragrance. You take a slow bite, tasting fully. You realize the sun, the rain, the soil, the farmer, all are present in this fruit. Gratitude arises. Connection arises. Eating becomes not just nourishment for the body, but nourishment for the soul. Mindfulness transforms relationships. When you are mindful, you listen deeply. You hear not only the words, but the feelings behind them. You respond with presence instead of reaction. Conflicts soften. Understanding grows. Love deepens. Mindfulness also transforms work. Instead of rushing mindlessly, you bring full attention to each task. Work becomes not just duty, but practice. Stress lessens, clarity sharpens, creativity blossoms. But mindfulness is not always easy. The mind wanders constantly. Thoughts pull us to the past, to the future, to endless stories. The practice is not to stop wandering. The practice is to return again and again. Each return is like a muscle strengthened. Each return is a victory. Pause here. Close your eyes if you wish. Take one slow breath in. Feel the air entering. Take one slow breath out. Feel the air leaving. Whisper silently, I am here. This is mindfulness. Simple, immediate, transformative. Buddha called mindfulness the path to the end of suffering. Because when we are mindful, we see clearly. We stop clinging to illusions. We stop running from reality. We stop being prisoners of our own thoughts. Mindfulness opens the door to freedom. And so, as we open this doorway, we see that mindfulness is not something we practice only on a cushion. It is a way of life. It is the way we drink tea, wash dishes, talk with friends, sit in silence. It is the way we live awake instead of asleep. And as we continue, we will see how mindfulness not only grounds us in the present, but also connects us to the truth of non-self. For when we are mindful, we see that the I we cling to is not solid. We see that the self is empty of permanence, empty of separation, empty of the chains we imagine. This is the next teaching, where mindfulness opens the door to the vast freedom of letting go of self. Mindfulness, when deepened, reveals something even more profound than calm or clarity. It reveals the illusion of self. Most of us live with the belief that there is a solid I at the center of our experience. We say, this is my body, my mind, my feelings, my thoughts. We cling to this I as though it were unchanging. Yet when we look closely with the light of mindfulness, this solid self cannot be found. The Buddha called this teaching anatta, non-self. It is not philosophy, not belief, but observation. When you breathe mindfully, you see the breath is not yours. It arises, it passes, it moves through you, but you do not control it. When you watch thoughts, you see they appear and disappear like clouds. You do not summon them, you do not hold them, they come and go on their own. When you feel an emotion, joy, anger, fear, rises, peaks, fades. Nothing lasts. Nothing is fixed. Where, then, is the solid I? This does not mean we do not exist. It means we do not exist in the way we imagine. The self is not a solid rock. It is a river, always flowing, always changing. To cling to it as fixed is to suffer. To see it as flowing is to be free. Think of a flame. It burns brightly, but look closer. Is it the same flame from moment to moment? No, it changes continuously, fed by fuel, by air, by conditions. The flame exists, yet it has no fixed core. The self is the same. We exist, but not as a permanent, unchanging entity. We exist as a dance of conditions, body, mind, breath, thought, feeling all flowing, all impermanent. Mindfulness allows us to see this directly. Without mindfulness, we say, I am angry. With mindfulness, we say, anger is present. Do you see the difference? The first statement identifies with the anger, clings to it as self. The second simply notices anger as a passing state. With this shift, anger loses its power. We no longer drown in it. We no longer chain ourselves to it. We see it come. We see it go. The same is true for fear, sadness, desire. When we believe they are me or mine, we are trapped. When we see them as passing visitors, we are free. Mindfulness is the door to this freedom. This realization of non-self is not cold. It does not erase individuality or love. In fact, it deepens love. When the walls of I and you dissolve, connection becomes clear. Your suffering is not separate from mine. Your joy is not separate from mine. The illusion of separation falls away. Compassion arises naturally. There is a story of a teacher who poured tea into a student's cup until it overflowed. The student cried, "It is full. No more will go in." The teacher replied, "Like this cup, you are full of self. How can I show you truth until you empty yourself?" This is the teaching of mindfulness, to empty ourselves of clinging to I, to open to the vastness of connection, in daily life. This means seeing through the stories of self. You say, "I am a failure." Mindfulness reveals there is only a thought of failure, passing. You say, "I am unlovable." Mindfulness reveals there is only a feeling of loneliness, passing. You say, "I must control everything." Mindfulness reveals there is only fear, passing. The self is not solid. It is stories, thoughts, feelings, all arising and fading. This realization is liberation. For if the self is not fixed, then nothing defines you forever. Your past mistakes are not chains. Your future fears are not destiny. You are not limited by the stories in your head. You are vast, open, fluid. You are not the storm. You are the sky. Pause here and breathe. Notice a thought that arises. Watch it. See how it appears, lingers, dissolves. Notice how another thought takes its place. Where is the solid self in this flow? There is only movement, only impermanence, only openness. This is freedom. Mindfulness is the practice of remembering this, moment by moment. To be mindful is to step out of the prison of I and into the reality of flow. To be mindful is to see that the cup is already broken, the moment already passing, the self already changing. To be mindful is to live without clinging, without fear, without illusion. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the path to awakening because it reveals the truth of all things, impermanent, without fixed self, interconnected. With this vision, clinging dissolves. With clinging dissolved, suffering ends. This is not abstract. It is practical. Each moment of mindfulness brings a taste of freedom. In modern times, mindfulness is often reduced to a technique for calm, but its true purpose is deeper. It is awakening. It is the vision that frees us. Calm is the fruit, but freedom is the root. And freedom comes when we see clearly, through mindfulness, that the self we cling to is empty, and in that emptiness lies peace. And so, as we close this doorway, carry the truth. Mindfulness is not simply a tool. It is a way of living awake. It is the lamp that reveals impermanence, the breath that anchors compassion, the practice that dissolves the illusion of self. With mindfulness, love flourishes. With mindfulness, suffering teaches. With mindfulness, freedom opens. And as we step forward, we arrive at the final doorway of this journey, the acceptance of death. For all paths, all teachings, all lives end here. But death is not the enemy. Like suffering, it is the teacher. Like impermanence, it is the truth. And when we meet death with mindfulness, we discover not despair, but peace. Death is the truth we avoid more than any other. We hide it behind hospital doors, soften it with euphemisms, distract ourselves with busyness so we do not have to face it. Yet death is always near. It walks with us in every breath, in every heartbeat, in every passing moment. The Buddha called death the greatest teacher, for it strips away illusion. It reminds us that nothing is permanent, not even ourselves. And in that reminder lies the key to freedom. Most people fear death. We fear the unknown, the loss, the end of all we cling to. But the Buddha taught that fear arises not from death itself, but from our ignorance of it. We treat death as an enemy, an intruder, something unnatural. In truth, death is as natural as birth. It is the closing of one chapter, the turning of one page in the endless book of existence. Think of the seasons. Spring blossoms, summer ripens, autumn withers, winter rests. Then the cycle begins again. Death is no different. It is not the opposite of life. It is part of life, woven into its rhythm. Without death, there is no renewal, no change, no growth. Without death, life would stagnate. Death is the soil from which new life blooms. The Buddha urged his disciples to contemplate death daily, not to dwell in fear, but to live awake. When you remember death, you waste less time. You cling less to anger, pride, and trivial quarrels. You cherish more deeply. You forgive more quickly. You love more freely. Death awareness is not morbid. It is the medicine that wakes us up to life. There is a story of a king who asked a sage for the most important truth. The sage replied, "Remember you must die." The king was offended, thinking it disrespectful. But later, in times of anger, in times of temptation, in times of pride, those words returned to him. Remember you must die. Slowly, he realized their wisdom. Death awareness kept him humble. It kept him kind. It kept him awake. When we avoid death, we live shallowly. When we remember death, we live fully. Each morning becomes a gift, not a guarantee. Each breath becomes precious. Each relationship becomes sacred. Death awareness transforms ordinary life into a miracle. But what about the fear? The fear of nothingness, of loss, of the unknown? The Buddha taught that fear of death comes from clinging to the illusion of a permanent self. When we believe there is a solid I that must continue, the end feels terrifying. But when we see that the self is already flowing, already changing, already empty, death is not an end. It is simply another change. Think of a wave on the ocean. For a time, it rises, distinct and beautiful. Then it falls, merging back into the sea. If the wave believes it is separate, it fears the end. But if it knows it is water, it rests in peace. We are like that wave. For a time, we rise as individuals. Then we fall, returning to the vast ocean of existence. Nothing is lost. Nothing is destroyed. Only transformed. Mindfulness of death also teaches compassion. When you remember that everyone you meet will one day die, your anger softens. How can we waste our brief time in hatred? When you remember that each person carries the same fragile fate, your heart opens. You see their suffering. You wish them peace. Death awareness dissolves barriers and awakens love. Pause here. Bring to mind someone you love. Imagine them at the end of their life. Notice the tenderness that arises, the wish to cherish them more deeply now. Now bring to mind someone difficult. Imagine them too at the end of their life. Notice how your anger weakens, replaced by compassion. This is the gift of remembering death. It makes love possible where hatred once lived. The Buddha taught that. Meditation on death is not about despair, but about urgency. It reminds us that life is short, and the time to awaken is now. We cannot wait for the perfect moment. We cannot wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised. The only time we have is this breath, this step, this moment. To live with death in mind is to live fully alive. And so, death becomes the final teacher. It shows us impermanence, stripping away illusion. It shows us connection, binding us in compassion. It shows us urgency, calling us to live awake now. Death is not an enemy. It is the greatest reminder of truth. And as we continue, we will see that when we accept death, we lose our greatest fear. And when fear is gone, we are free. Free to love, free to live, free to walk the path with open eyes and open heart. Not to sit with the truth of death is to sit with the deepest mystery of life. Many people recoil from it, imagining that to reflect on death is to darken the mind. Yet the Buddha urged us to bring death into our awareness, not to frighten us, but to free us. For when you live with the remembrance of death, you begin to live without fear. Imagine holding a flower in your hand. You know it will wither. You know it cannot last. Does this knowledge make the flower less beautiful? Or does it make you cherish it more deeply, breathing in its fragrance, gazing at its colors with gratitude? Death awareness does the same for life. It does not diminish life. It magnifies it. It makes each moment sacred. Fear of death comes from clinging to body, to possessions, to relationships, to self. But when we see clearly that all of these are impermanent, fear softens. The body will change. Possessions will fade. Relationships will transform. The self itself is a dance, not a solid stone. Death does not destroy what we are. It reveals what we truly are. A flow, a part of the vast whole. There is a parable of a farmer who once found a bird's egg. He raised the chick with care until it grew strong. One day, the bird spread its wings and flew away. The farmer wept, wishing the bird had stayed forever. But another farmer said, "The bird was never yours to keep. It was only yours to love for a time." Life is like that bird. We cannot keep it. We can only love it while it is here. Death awareness teaches us to love fully without clinging. Asterisk in modern society, death is often hidden. We do not speak of it. We rush to cover it. Yet the silence around death makes fear grow. When we bring it into the open, when we speak of it with honesty, when we contemplate it with mindfulness, fear dissolves. Death becomes not a dark secret, but a natural truth. The Buddha himself spoke of death not with dread, but with clarity. He said, "Of all footprints, that of the elephant is supreme. Of all contemplations, mindfulness of death is supreme." Why? Because it strips away illusion. It shows us what truly matters. It awakens us to live rightly, to love deeply, to walk the path with sincerity. Pause here. Close your eyes. Imagine this is your last day, not as a fantasy, but as a possibility. How would you live it? Who would you forgive? Who would you love? What burdens would you set down? What joys would you cherish? Let this reflection awaken urgency, not despair. Let it remind you that life is now. When we accept death, we accept life. We no longer waste time in endless distractions. We no longer cling to grudges. We no longer postpone love. We live with clarity, with courage, with compassion. Death awareness does not paralyze us. It liberates us. Asterisk, and when death finally comes, we can meet it not with terror, but with peace. Like the monk with the teacup, we can say, "This life was already broken. I enjoyed it fully. I cherished it deeply. And now I let it go." Death becomes not defeat, but completion.